There's a reason why some people seem unshaken, no matter how chaotic life gets. They think differently. They don't react, they respond. They don't just take in information, they analyze it. While others feel lost in uncertainty, they move with clarity. But here's the real question. What makes their mindset so powerful? And more importantly, how can you develop it? The answer lies in critical thinking mastery, a skill that isn't just about intelligence, but about discipline, self-control, and perspective. This is the foundation of the Stoic mind, a mind that doesn't fall for illusions, doesn't get swayed by emotions, and doesn't blindly follow the crowd. Instead, it sees reality for what it is. It makes deliberate decisions rather than impulsive ones. It stays calm, sharp, and unshakable. In this video, we're breaking down the exact strategies to train your mind like a Stoic philosopher, how to free yourself from mental biases, think with absolute clarity, and make decisions with unwavering confidence. This isn't just theory. It's practical, actionable, and life-changing. So, if you're tired of second-guessing yourself, if you want to upgrade your mindset for success, stay with me till the end. And let me know in the comments, what's the biggest mental roadblock you've faced? Let's talk about it. 1. Mastering the observer's mind. Your mind is a battlefield. Every day, countless thoughts, emotions, and impulses fight for control. Some are rooted in logic, others in fleeting emotions. The difference between a person who stays calm under pressure and someone who crumbles is not intelligence. It's the ability to observe rather than react. Most people live their lives as if they are their thoughts. They feel an emotion and immediately believe it must be acted upon. They face a challenge and assume their first reaction is the correct one. But this is where critical thinking mastery separates the reactive from the rational. A Stoic mind does not rush to judgment. It watches, it questions, it waits. It understands that thoughts are just thoughts, nothing more, nothing less. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a stormy sea. The waves crash violently, the wind howls, and everything around you is chaos. If you panic and dive into the water, you'll be thrown around, powerless. But if you stand firm on the shore, watching the waves rather than getting caught in them, you remain in control. This is what it means to master the observer's mind. To stand still while the storm rages inside you. To acknowledge emotions but not let them dictate your actions. Mike did not yet understand this. Working on a high-stakes project with Sarah, he felt the tension build each day. His ideas were dismissed and his suggestions were shot down. It seemed clear to him Sarah didn't respect him. Resentment simmered beneath the surface. Then came the breaking point. After yet another meeting where Sarah rejected his input, Mike could no longer hold it in. His fingers flew across the keyboard, typing out an email filled with frustration, ready to send it straight to their boss. But at that moment, something stopped him. A simple thought. What if I'm wrong? For the first time, Mike stepped back, not physically but mentally. Instead of letting anger dictate his next move, he paused and observed. He reread his email. He felt his heartbeat slowing. He asked himself, am I reacting or am I thinking? Instead of sending the email, he chose a different path. He spoke to Sarah directly. What he discovered surprised him. Sarah wasn't dismissing him out of disrespect. She was under immense pressure to meet tight deadlines and was cutting through ideas quickly to keep the project on track. It wasn't personal. It never was. Mike left that conversation with something far more valuable than an apology. He left with clarity. He realized that his frustration had been a projection, a false assumption built on unchecked emotion. And in that realization, he saw how many times in his life he had mistaken perception for reality. This is why the Stoics teach self-control over impulse and observation over reaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The power lies in pausing, not suppressing emotions but understanding them, not denying frustration but questioning its source. When you feel slighted, ask, is this real or is this my perception? When anger rises, step back and say, does this serve me? The modern world rewards instant reaction. Social media thrives on outrage, conversations turn into battles, and speed is mistaken for intelligence. But true wisdom is slow. A mind that observes first and acts second is a mind that rarely regrets its choices. The next time you find yourself caught in a wave of emotion, resist the urge to dive in. Stand on the shore. Watch the storm, but don't become it. When you develop this skill, nothing, not a rude comment, not a dismissive coworker, not even life's unexpected hardships, will shake you. Because you will no longer be ruled by fleeting emotions, you will be ruled by clarity. And when you can see clearly, you can think clearly. This brings us to the next challenge, the discipline of rational thought. 2. The discipline of rational thought. The mind is constantly at war with itself. One side craves comfort, indulgence, and the thrill of the moment. The other seeks clarity, structure, and long-term success. Every decision you make is a battle between these forces, emotion versus reason. And most people, they let emotions win. They feel before they think, and by the time they realize their mistake, the damage is already done. This is where critical thinking mastery separates those who drift through life from those who take control. A rational mind does not reject emotions but questions them. It does not make decisions out of impulse but out of strategy. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events but from our judgments about them. Your emotions may scream one thing, but your ability to analyze, detach, and think clearly is what keeps you from making choices you regret. A few months ago, I found myself standing in front of a car dealership, mesmerized by the sleek design of a luxury car. It was the kind of car that turns heads, the kind that makes you feel like you finally made it. The salesman knew exactly what to say. You work hard. You deserve this. And that thought took root. Yes, I do deserve this. I could already picture myself behind the wheel, the admiration in people's eyes. It felt like the right choice. But then something pulled me back. The excitement began to settle, and I forced myself to sit down and do the numbers. The monthly payment was steep, the maintenance costs even higher, and deep down, I knew I would be stretching beyond my financial limits. The truth hit hard. The desire for the car wasn't about practicality. It was about ego. I could afford something reliable, but my emotions had convinced me that I needed something excessive. So, I walked away. The moment I left, the pull of temptation weakened. And by the time I got home, I felt something unexpected. Relief. I had made a decision rooted in logic, not fleeting excitement. Because the reality is that rational thinking is not about killing emotions. It's about seeing through them, recognizing when they serve you and when they control you. But emotional impulses don't just lead us to reckless purchases. They cloud our judgment in far more critical situations. Take career decisions, for example. You get an offer for a high-paying job, but something feels off. The culture seems toxic and the work uninspiring. Yet your emotions whisper, take it. It's security. It's status. And so, people jump in, only to realize months later that no amount of money is worth waking up every morning dreading the day ahead. Now imagine another version of yourself. One that steps back and assesses the situation without emotional interference. Instead of rushing into the first option that feels right, you weigh the real costs and benefits. Is this job aligned with your long-term goals? Will the stress be worth it? If you remove the instant gratification, is it still the right choice? The rational mind forces you to answer these questions honestly. Seneca wrote that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And preparation is not just about having the right skills, it's about having the right mindset. A mind that is disciplined in reasoning does not fall for illusions. It does not let impulse dictate major life choices. It takes time to analyze, project consequences, and act deliberately. When faced with a decision, take a moment to detach from it. Write it down. Break it into facts versus feelings. If your emotions were not involved, what would be the best choice? This is the essence of rational thinking. Not cold detachment, but strategic clarity. And once you learn to see through the noise of emotions, you'll start recognizing another enemy of clear thinking. Mental biases that distort reality. Let's talk about them next. 3. Freeing yourself from mental chains. Your mind is powerful. It shapes how you see the world, how you make decisions, and ultimately, how you live your life. But what if I told you that your mind is also your biggest limitation? Not because you lack intelligence, but because of something far more subtle: mental biases. Most people don't question their own thoughts. They assume that because they feel something, it must be true. They believe that because they've always thought a certain way, it must be right. But reality doesn't work that way. Your brain takes shortcuts. It filters information to fit what you already believe. And without realizing it, you become trapped in a world shaped by your own assumptions, rather than reality itself. The Stoics warned against this. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." The moment you assume you're right without questioning, you stop thinking critically, you stop growing. And worst of all, you blind yourself to better possibilities. Imagine walking into a dimly lit room filled with mirrors. Each one reflects a slightly distorted version of reality. Some make you taller, others make you wider, and some warp your entire shape. But here's the thing. You don't realize they're mirrors. You think that's what you really look like. This is what mental biases do. They shape your perception in ways you don't even notice, making you believe in illusions and ignore uncomfortable truths. A few years ago, a friend of mine, let's call him James, was convinced he had bad luck in business. Every idea he had seemed to fail. Every investment turned into a loss. He believed he just wasn't meant to succeed. But when I asked him to break it down, something became clear. His failures weren't because he was unlucky. They were because he kept making the same mistakes, but never questioned them. James always relied on gut feelings rather than research. He invested in things because they felt right, never analyzing the risks properly. He ignored advice from experienced people because he thought his instincts were enough. He blamed bad luck, but the real problem was his own thinking. He was caught in confirmation bias, only paying attention to information that supported his beliefs while ignoring everything else. One day, after another failed investment, he finally asked himself, "What if I'm wrong?" It was the first time he truly questioned his approach. Instead of assuming he was doomed, he decided to change his process. He studied past decisions, identified where emotions had clouded his judgment, and started making choices based on analysis, not assumptions. Within a year, things turned around. His first well-researched investment paid off, then another. The problem had never been bad luck. It was a flawed way of thinking that he had never challenged. Most people live like James did before he changed. They blame circumstances, never realizing that the real battle is in their own mind. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." If you don't challenge your own perspective, you will always be controlled by mental illusions. So how do you break free? First, develop the habit of questioning yourself. Every time you feel certain about something, pause. Ask, what if I'm wrong? What evidence do I actually have? Am I ignoring something? Second, seek out different perspectives, not to change your mind instantly, but to see the bigger picture. Talk to people with opposing views. Read sources that challenge your beliefs, not because they are right, but because they help you think more critically. The mind, when left unchecked, becomes a prison of its own making. But the moment you start questioning, the walls begin to fall. The more you challenge your assumptions, the sharper your thinking becomes. And the sharper your thinking, the less likely you are to be controlled by forces you don't even see. Once you escape these mental chains, you gain something even greater: the ability to see reality clearly. And when you can see clearly, you can solve problems effectively. That's what we'll explore next. 4. The art of clarity. Life is not a puzzle with clear-cut answers. It's a storm of conflicting information, emotional impulses, and external pressures, all demanding your immediate reaction. And that's where most people go wrong. They don't pause to separate truth from assumption, emotion from fact. They act on instinct, frustration, or fear, believing that clarity will come later, but it never does. A mind that lacks clarity is like a glass of muddy water. Every thought, every assumption, every unchecked emotion stirs the dirt, making it impossible to see what's beneath. But when you allow the water to settle, when you remove what doesn't belong, the truth emerges. Clarity is not something you find, it's something you create by removing the unnecessary, by questioning what you think you know. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that. How much of your stress comes from actual problems, and how much comes from the stories you tell yourself about them? When you don't seek clarity, you live in those stories, trapped in assumptions that have never been tested. And when you make decisions based on blurred vision, the results rarely align with what you actually want. Let's make this personal. Imagine you just received a short one-word response to an important text you sent. Immediately, your mind starts racing. Are they upset? Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Without realizing it, you've already built an entire narrative based on nothing but assumption. The reality? Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they were in a rush. Maybe it meant nothing at all. But instead of seeking clarity, asking, observing, or simply waiting, you react. You assume the worst. And now, an imagined problem has become a real one. Now, take a step back. Picture yourself removing the noise from this situation. Instead of feeding into assumptions, you pause. You recognize that emotion is not evidence. You don't let a single message dictate your state of mind. You ask yourself, what do I actually know? Suddenly, the water clears. You're no longer controlled by uncertainty because you never let it control you in the first place. But this applies to more than just texts. Think about how often you assume things about yourself. You didn't get the job. You assume you weren't good enough. If someone cancels plans, you assume they don't value you. A project fails, you assume you're not meant to succeed. Each time, the real problem isn't the situation. It's the meaning you attach to it without questioning whether it's true. And when you don't question, you react. Just like my friend Ethan did. He had spent months preparing for an opportunity, a promotion that would put him on track for everything he had worked for. But when the position was filled by someone else, his first thought was, it's over. I'll never get another chance. That one assumption shattered his confidence. He lost motivation. He convinced himself he wasn't leadership material. But was that true? No, he never actually asked why. He never sought feedback, never questioned whether it was a timing issue, and never considered that another opportunity might be just around the corner. Instead, he reacted. It wasn't until months later, when he finally had a conversation with his manager, that he realized how wrong his assumptions had been. The position had been filled by someone with specific technical experience that was needed at the time. However, the leadership team had been considering him for an even bigger role that would open up in the next quarter. His false narrative had almost made him quit, right before his breakthrough. This is what happens when you don't seek clarity. You fill in the blanks with fear, doubt, and past insecurities. You let emotions distort reality. But when you think like a Stoic, you strip everything down to what is real. You don't assume. You don't react. You observe, question, and make decisions based on truth, not impulse. Think of your mind like a sculptor facing a block of marble. The masterpiece is already inside. You just need to remove what doesn't belong. Every false assumption, every unnecessary emotion, and every unchallenged belief is an excess stone. The more you chip away at what is false, the clearer the truth becomes. And once you see clearly, you're no longer vulnerable to illusions. You're no longer controlled by what might be. You're grounded in what is. This means the next step is learning how to separate truth from illusion entirely, a skill that will shape everything that follows. 5. Separating truth from illusion. The world is full of illusions, not just in the obvious ways, like deceptive marketing, social media filters, or biased news, but in ways we rarely notice. The mind constantly creates false narratives about the people around us, our own abilities, and the events that shape our lives. And the greatest mistake we can make is to accept these narratives as truth, without question. Most people never pause to analyze their thoughts. If a friend is quiet, they assume they must be upset. If someone doesn't text back immediately, they assume they are being ignored. If they face rejection, they assume it means they aren't good enough. But these assumptions are not facts. They are stories shaped by emotion, insecurity, and past experiences. And when you mistake these stories for reality, you don't just experience unnecessary suffering, you make poor decisions. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." This is the discipline of phantasia kataleptike, the ability to recognize impressions for what they are and separate truth from illusion. A rational mind does not cling to first reactions. It questions, analyzes, and strips away emotion before accepting anything as real. Now let's bring this closer to home. Imagine a situation where you just had a serious conversation with your boss. Their feedback was neutral. maybe even slightly cold. As you leave the room, a storm brews in your mind. Did I mess up? Are they disappointed in me? Is my job in danger? You replay every word, every pause, every look. Your body tenses. Anxiety creeps in. Within minutes, you've convinced yourself that something is wrong, even though nothing actually happened. Now pause. Take a step back. What do you actually know? You had a conversation. Your boss gave feedback. That's it. Everything else, your assumptions about their emotions, their thoughts, or what will happen next, is pure fiction. But because the mind hates uncertainty, it fills in the gaps with fear. This happens more often than we realize. We assume the worst about people's intentions. We attach hidden meanings to simple actions. We predict failure before it even happens. And then, instead of seeking truth, we act based on illusion. It's like walking through a thick fog. When you're surrounded by it, every shadow looks like a threat. Every noise feels like danger. You start imagining things that aren't there. But when the fog clears, you realize nothing was ever as bad as it seemed. The same applies to life. When we fail to separate truth from illusion, we live in fear, misinterpretation, and overreaction. The consequences? Unnecessary conflicts, missed opportunities, and emotional exhaustion. Imagine how much energy is wasted worrying about things that never happen, resenting people who never intended harm, or doubting yourself because of fears that aren't real. But clarity is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed. Here's how. First, pause before reacting. When a strong emotion arises, stop. Ask yourself, what do I actually know? Strip away assumptions and deal only with facts. Second, test your beliefs. If you assume someone is upset with you, ask. If you think something is impossible, challenge that belief. Look for evidence. Third, detach from emotion. Emotions cloud logic. They make small issues feel like crises. But the Stoics teach us that we can acknowledge emotions without being controlled by them. A moment of anger, doubt, or insecurity does not mean it reflects reality. Once you train your mind to see clearly, you no longer fall into the trap of illusion. You become someone who makes decisions based on truth, not fear. And the less you react to false narratives, the stronger, calmer, and more effective you become. And once you master this skill, you can do something even greater. Communicate with clarity and purpose. That's where we go next. 6. Effective communication and critical thinking. Words shape reality. They influence how people see you, how they react to you, and how conflicts either escalate or dissolve. Yet most people don't think before they speak. They react. They let emotions dictate their words, assuming that the first thought in their mind must be the right one. And this is where misunderstandings begin. Communication is not just about speaking, it's about thinking before speaking. A person who lacks clarity in thought will struggle to express themselves effectively. They may believe they are making a strong argument, yet their words only cause confusion or resistance. And when emotions dictate speech, words become weapons rather than bridges. The Stoics were acutely aware of this. Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak." They saw speech as a tool, not a reflex. To use it well, you must first learn how to sharpen your thoughts, to separate emotion from fact, to ensure that what you say reflects what you actually mean. Think about the last time you were in an argument. Someone said something that stung, and without hesitation, you fired back with equal intensity. In that moment, you weren't thinking, you were reacting, and at the time, it felt justified. But later, when the emotions faded, you might have regretted it. Maybe you realized that what was said in anger didn't need to be said at all. Maybe you saw that the argument wasn't even about what you thought it was. Now, imagine you had taken a different approach. Instead of reacting, you paused. You let the words settle. You asked yourself, is this about me or is it about them? Am I listening to what they're actually saying or just reacting to my own emotions? That moment of reflection could have changed everything. Instead of escalating, you could have de-escalated. Instead of arguing, you could have understood. Communication is like an archer's bow. If you release the arrow without aiming, it will land anywhere, often where you don't intend. But if you take a moment to focus, to adjust, to consider the angle and the wind, you will hit your mark. The difference between impulsive words and intentional words is the difference between creating chaos and creating clarity. This is where critical thinking meets communication. A person who has trained their mind to analyze before reacting, to question before assuming, and to clarify before speaking will always have the advantage. They don't just throw words into the air and hope for the best. They craft their message with intention, ensuring that what they say aligns with what they truly mean. The Stoics practiced this in every aspect of life. They understood that words were a reflection of thought. If your thoughts are disorganized, your speech will be too. If your mind is clouded with bias, assumptions, or ego, your words will reflect that confusion. The next time you find yourself about to react emotionally, stop. Ask yourself, what am I actually trying to communicate? Am I speaking to express or just to vent frustration? Will my words bring me closer to resolution or further from it? This pause, this moment of rational thought before speaking, is where power lies. The ability to control your tongue, to filter your words through the lens of clarity and reason, is a skill that separates those who command respect from those who are constantly misunderstood. And when you master it, you not only improve the way you speak, you improve the way others listen. Because people don't just hear your words, they feel the intention behind them. And when that intention is rooted in wisdom rather than impulse, it has far greater impact. However, effective communication is not just about speaking. It's also about listening. And that's where many people fail. They listen to respond, not to understand. They wait for their turn to talk instead of absorbing what is being said. And in doing so, they miss valuable insights, opportunities, and deeper connections. A well-trained mind chooses words carefully and listens deeply. And once you master this balance, you can do something even greater. Engage with diverse perspectives in a way that sharpens your understanding rather than threatening it. That's where we go next. 7. Expanding the mind through contradiction. The greatest threat to critical thinking is certainty, the belief that we already know everything we need to know. The refusal to engage with opposing ideas because we assume they have nothing to offer. But true wisdom does not come from defending what we already believe. It comes from challenging those beliefs, testing them, refining them. Most people see disagreement as an attack. When they hear an idea that contradicts their own, their instinct is to reject it, to argue against it, to protect their viewpoint instead of expanding it. But here's the irony. The strongest beliefs are not the ones that have never been questioned. They are the ones that have survived questioning. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I am making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I will gladly change. For my goal is the truth, not to defend my ego." This is not about constantly changing your mind. It is about strengthening your thinking by exposing it to opposition. A mind that never faces resistance becomes weak, just like a body that never lifts heavy weight. To develop intellectual strength, you must engage with ideas that challenge you, not just the ones that confirm what you already believe. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. If the metal is never tested against fire, never hammered into shape, it remains fragile and useless. But when it is placed under heat, when it is struck and reshaped, it becomes stronger than before. The same applies to your thinking. The more you expose your ideas to the fire of contradiction, the sharper and more refined they become. This brings us to a simple but uncomfortable challenge. Are you willing to defend a perspective you disagree with? In a philosophy class, a professor gives students a difficult task. He asks them to write an essay supporting an argument they personally oppose. At first, the students resist. They feel uncomfortable, even offended. But as they start researching, something happens. They realize that the opposing side is not as irrational as they thought. They discover arguments they had never considered and evidence they had never encountered. By the time they finish the assignment, most of them haven't changed their minds, but their thinking has evolved. They no longer see the opposing side as foolish or ignorant. They understand its logic. They can argue against it more effectively because they now understand it from the inside. This is what most people fail to do. They assume their perspective is correct simply because they have never tested it. They build walls around their beliefs, never allowing opposing ideas to enter. But the Stoics remind us that a fortress built on weak foundations will collapse at the first sign of pressure. To truly master critical thinking, you must step outside of your mental comfort zone. Instead of dismissing perspectives that challenge you, engage with them. Ask yourself, what would I say if I had to defend this idea? What evidence might someone use to support it? Is it possible that I am missing something? This is not about abandoning your beliefs. It is about making them stronger. A person who has only ever entertained one perspective is limited. A person who has examined multiple perspectives and still stands firm in their view is unshakable. The next time you hear an idea that contradicts your own, resist the urge to reject it immediately. Instead, engage with it. Analyze it as if you were trying to prove it right. Find its strongest points, not just its weaknesses. Because when you learn to think this way, you will stop seeing disagreement as a threat and start seeing it as an opportunity. 8. The wisdom of deliberate action. Every choice you make shapes your future, but the way most people make decisions is flawed. They rush, they react, and they let temporary emotions cloud long-term judgment. They chase the immediate reward without asking if it aligns with what they truly want. And later, they wonder why they feel trapped, why their life seems to be moving in a direction they never intended. Critical thinking is not just about analyzing ideas. It's about making better choices, choosing not based on impulse but on reason. A wise person does not ask, what feels good now, but rather, what will serve me in the long run? The difference between those who build a meaningful life and those who feel lost is the ability to pause, think, and choose with intention. The Stoics believed that indifference to short-term temptations leads to true power. They called this approach prohairesis, the ability to control your will and make decisions that align with your deeper values rather than your fleeting emotions. Epictetus taught that we should not be ruled by desires or fears, but should train ourselves to act according to principles. When faced with a choice, the goal is not to do what is easiest, but what is right. Imagine you are standing at a crossroads with two paths before you. One is smooth, lined with immediate rewards, money, status, comfort. The other is steep and uncertain, requiring patience and discipline. Most people take the first road without thinking, seduced by the illusion of ease. But those who pause, who analyze, who consider the long-term consequences, they choose wisely. And in the end, their path leads to something greater. This was the choice Jim faced. He received 2 job offers. One promised a higher salary, but the work did not align with his values. The other paid less, but offered long-term growth. At first, the answer seemed obvious. Who wouldn't take the higher paycheck? But Jim knew better. He took a step back and made a list. He weighed each factor carefully: his goals, his skills, the environment he wanted to work. Instead of reacting impulsively, he chose deliberately. And when he looked at the bigger picture, the answer became clear. The lower-paying job would allow him to build a career he actually cared about. He turned down the money, knowing that real success is not measured by a paycheck, but by the fulfillment of purpose. How many people would have done the same? How many would have chased the short-term gain, only to regret it later? This is why decision-making is an art that requires discipline, patience, and the ability to see beyond the immediate moment. Life constantly presents us with these choices. A relationship that offers passion but no stability. A business opportunity that is lucrative but unethical. A quick solution that solves a problem today but creates bigger ones tomorrow. Those who lack critical thinking will always choose what feels good now. But those who train their minds will choose what is right for the future. And this is where the Stoics give us a practical method. Examine every choice as if you were advising someone else. Imagine a friend came to you with your exact dilemma. What would you tell them? The moment you remove your personal emotions from the decision, you see it with clarity. Another technique: think from the perspective of your future self. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Which choice will you be grateful for? Which one will you regret? If the answer is obvious, then the decision is already made. This level of decision-making is rare. It requires the ability to delay gratification, to resist the easy path, and to trust that wisdom is more valuable than comfort. But those who master it become unshakable. They do not drift through life pushed by circumstances. They shape their future with precision. And once you learn to make choices with intention, you develop something even greater: mental resilience. the ability to stand firm, to face hardship without breaking, to remain grounded no matter what happens. And that's what we'll explore next. 9. Becoming unshakable. Most people break under pressure. The moment something unexpected happens, they panic. They let fear control their actions. They make rash decisions. They react rather than respond. But those who have trained their minds, who have developed mental resilience, remain calm, no matter the storm. They know that the only thing they truly control is their reaction. Critical thinking is not just about solving problems. It's about facing adversity without losing yourself. A person who can analyze a situation, separate fact from fear, and act with clarity will always be stronger than someone who lets emotions dictate their choices. The Stoics lived by this principle. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He understood that most of our struggles are not caused by what actually happens, but by how we interpret what happens. A setback is only a setback if you see it that way. A failure is only a failure if you refuse to learn from it. The mind determines reality more than circumstances do. Imagine you are walking through a dense forest. The path is uneven and full of obstacles. If you move carelessly, you will trip over every root and branch. But if you step with awareness, if you expect challenges and navigate them with focus, you will move forward without fear. Life is no different. Those who expect everything to be easy will always be frustrated. But those who train their minds to handle difficulty will never be shaken. Now think about a moment in your own life when you felt overwhelmed. Maybe it was a crisis at work, a personal betrayal, or a time when everything seemed to go wrong at once. In that moment, did you react emotionally, or did you pause, assess, and take control? Picture yourself in this situation. You just received devastating news, something that completely disrupts your plans. Most people would immediately spiral. They would complain, panic, or freeze. But you stop. You breathe. You analyze. What is within my control? What is not? What is the next logical step? You do not waste energy on things you cannot change. You direct your focus only on what you can influence. This is exactly what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let's take this principle into the real world. A friend of mine, David, built a business from scratch. He spent years working on it, sacrificing sleep and investing everything he had. Then out of nowhere, the market changed. Sales dropped. His investors pulled out. Everything seemed to be falling apart. Most people in his situation would have reacted with despair. They would have blamed external factors, given up, or made reckless choices in desperation. But David did something different. Instead of panicking, he stepped back. He spent an entire week just analyzing, going through numbers, understanding trends, and removing his emotions from the equation. Then, instead of desperately trying to hold on to the old plan, he adapted. He pivoted his business model. He found new ways to generate income, and within a year, he was not only back on track, he was more successful than before. This is the power of mental resilience. Not just surviving failure, but using it as fuel. Not just handling setbacks, but thriving despite them. The difference between those who break under pressure and those who rise stronger is how they think. When emotions take over, logic disappears. But when logic leads, emotions become tools, not traps. The next time you face a crisis, remind yourself, you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the master of your response. Will you react, or will you pause and choose wisely? Because once you develop this mindset, once you learn to stand firm no matter what happens, there is nothing in life that can truly shake you. And when you become unshakable, you don't just survive, you lead, you inspire, you win. Every thought you train, every decision you refine, every emotion you learn to control, it all adds up to something greater. A mind that cannot be manipulated, a life that cannot be derailed. Critical thinking is not just an intellectual skill. It is the foundation of self-mastery. Through this journey, we've explored how to become more aware of your thought patterns, break free from biases, question assumptions, and make deliberate choices. We've learned that true wisdom comes not from clinging to what we already believe, but from challenging, refining, and strengthening our perspectives. The Stoics knew this well. They practiced detachment from fleeting emotions, discipline in decision-making, and an unwavering focus on what was within their control. They understood that the mind, when trained, becomes the greatest tool for navigating life's uncertainties. But knowing these principles is not enough. Wisdom without action is useless. If you want to build an unshakable mind, you must practice these skills every single day. Start small, pause before reacting, analyze before assuming, and seek to understand before dismissing. And as you practice, share your journey. What moments have tested your ability to think clearly? When have emotions clouded your judgment? How did you overcome it? Leave your stories in the comments. Let's create a space where we sharpen each other's minds, because in the end, your thoughts shape your reality. Train them well, and there is nothing in life that you cannot face.